Hello, this is my reflections on Palm Sunday and moving towards Maundy Thursday. Um, when I'm about to die, um, let me back up a bit. I plan actually to die very gracefully, sitting up in bed surrounded by my family and friends, fully aware, not in any pain at all, and I get to say wise things and generally be graceful, and then with great dignity, suddenly, but without upsetting anybody, just to die. Um, I've been by deathbed sides long enough and often enough to know that there isn't a hope that this is going to happen, but it's oh, it's about saying what would I like to say to the people I love and care about? How would I like to give them some guidance to get on with life after I've gone, to live well, to live fully, um, to find the things that I gave them that were useful and to let go of the things which weren't useful. What would you say at your deathbed scene? What would happen there? How would it be laid out? Um, what would you give the people you love to send them onwards and to send them out into the rest of their lives well and grounded and able to cope with the difficulties and particularly to go with hope and love in their hearts? Today we follow the story of Jesus riding into victory, riding into the holy city, Jerusalem, on the biggest and most defining of the festivals of the year. This is when they remembered how they had once been slaves and how they had been delivered. They'd been lost and confused and even doubting that trying to run away from slavery was a smart move. This was when they remembered how they fought their way across the desert, how they survived for almost a generation wandering in the wilderness. And then, having become confident, strong, by military might, they invaded the land that they felt was promised to them. And they drove out other nations with great and effective violence. And that is a little problematic, but that's essentially the story. Jesus knew that he was walking into trouble. He knew that he was walking into a lion's cage when he walked into Jerusalem. He knew that the power and the privilege of that place and of those people was such that they would not tolerate his presence. They would not allow him to stay. Jesus was walking into his own death. And this night, this Last Supper, as we call it, was the Jewish Passover supper. And he was saying goodbye to his family, his friends, his disciples, the people who were with him. Now, he didn't just hope something nice was going to happen. Jesus planned ahead. He had a buddy somewhere who had a big room. And Jesus must have sent him an email and said, could we borrow your room and could you set this up for us? We need a lot of food, lamb particularly, and all sorts of side pieces and a decent amount of good red wine and seats for everybody and a place for Michelangelo to do the painting. So they had the Passover, and the Passover was the meal when they remembered how the angel of death passed over the houses of all the Jewish families enslaved in Egypt, but took away the firstborn of every Egyptian house. And the air was full of the sound of wailing and crying, and in that great confusion, they took up their stuff and they left. And they walked out. And they walked to the Red Sea, and the sea parted for them, and they went into the wilderness. And there they were for 40 years. This was an old meal. It was an old story full of richness and of the unpredictability of God's way with us. Jesus told this story. They rehearsed it together. They read the text, and he told them of freedom and how hard freedom is. He told them about courage and struggle and the rewards that only come that way. He told them finally about trust. You have to trust in this unseen God, and that's not always easy. You can't experience the power of the God who can catch you in midair unless you dare to jump without any parachute. He told them that they would have to live by trust, by faith and by hope, but never alone. Always they should come together every year, every week, come together for worship, for friendship, for offering of prayers and hopes and fears in each other's presence. Come together for these great festivals and for ordinary blessings. Together to share the bread and wine, just like that night, and to sing hymns and to smile. Stories, prayers, blessings, sacraments, community, being one body in which everyone tries to look out for each other, after each other, to be one body, to put up with each other's eccentricities and idiosyncrasies, to learn to forgive people who are hard to live with, to learn to be forgiven when you've been difficult to live with. This was what Jesus was teaching them. To be together, to be one body where the pulse is God's heartbeat. Not that you're always aware of it, but you know it to be true. And that truth is what gave Jesus courage on Palm Sunday to get onto the donkey, and not very many days later to get up on the cross. Going to church Sunday by Sunday now is, it often feels old-fashioned, and many people see it as such. It seems odd, and that to do this, and fewer every year do come to church. But it is in weaving yourself into part of the body of Christ, at St. Andrew's by the Lake or wherever you are, to be in a community of faith, to be part of a body. You draw the truths of Palm Sunday into your soul, wordlessly, almost without realizing it. The Passover story, the Red Sea parting, the donkey ride on and on in majesty, the betrayal and the arrest story, the brutality and the execution of Jesus. All these come together. The story of the tomb, the story of the night, the story of the resurrection. These are stories that seep into you and they change you. That's what deathbed moments are hoped for to do. To change, to challenge, to teach, to heal and empower those that you love into the fullness of life. May you dig deep enough into this holy story in these days. May you be doing it at home and you will just be doing this at home, not with each other in church. But sometimes solitude isn't a bad variation, just from time to time. Because in solitude you may hear things differently. You can slow down the pace at which you read and ponder and savour and sometimes repeat reading the same line 3 or 4 times as you dig into it and get everything out of it. It may not be so bad this year, one year, to be celebrating the whole of Holy Week alone or just with 1 or 2 other people in your own home. COVID-19 is not a good thing, but sometimes God can extract blessings out of the most unpleasant things, and perhaps spending this Holy Week largely alone, contemplating these readings, these services, may be a blessing. So may God bless you as you walk through Holy Week. May God understand how deep and how wide your love is, and may you understand how deep and complete and sufficient God's care, compassion, love and hope for you are. It's a costly love, and it's given to you. Amen.